Good morning, everyone. Welcome this morning. I know you could be at the beach like everybody else who's celebrating Memorial Day weekend. Thank you for being here. And if everyone will rise in spirit or body, we are going to sing our anchor song, which hopefully will be up there. Good morning again, and welcome everyone. My name is Petra, and I serve this congregation today as worship associate. Here in this sanctuary, where no matter what our spiritual beliefs may be, we practice imagining a healed and healthy world by centering ourselves in love and embracing the 6 shared values of Unitarian Universalism. At its roots, the word religion means to bind together, and we are bound together by our values and the covenants we make about how to live those values. Living into our covenants is what makes us faithful UUs, because our values heal the connections to our true selves and our connections with one another and the earth. Today, as we practice imagination together, I would like to share a little bit of what we do here at Unitarian Universalism Congregation of Lakeland. You can find more in the newsletter and also more information about these things. But coming up is Pride Week. It's June 8th through the 14th. Starting today, you may join Catherine Steele after the service in the social hall to make bracelets for the Pride in the Park, where we will be participating with a tent. That's later. You can contact Heather to ask how you may assist in any of these events, except today. I mean, you just got to be there today. Pride in Faith worship service at Beacon Hill Fellowship is Thursday, June 12th at 7 p.m. Karen Dutry wants to instigate a karaoke party on Friday, June 13th here at UUCL. So you might want to contact her, but like I said, you can always contact Heather for more information. And then on Saturday, that's the day, June 14th from 9 to 4, that we will have our tent set up at Pride in the Park. If you'll contact Sherry Kent for more information on that one, she needs people to help during the day. It's only for a couple of hours at a time, and you might want to, very well might want to visit the rest of the park before or after. So, first, however, we must not forget that the first Friday on June 6th is Family Fun Night theme. If you want to assist in that in any way or find out where our tent is, contact They Sell Decor. And just stop by for the festivities if you can't help out that night. Our next UUCL fundraiser is Jesus Christ Superstar at the Oslo Repertory Theater in Sarasota, Florida on Saturday, June 7th at 1:30 p.m. It's a matinee performance. If you'll contact Adam or Floyd, you can get more information about that. Looking ahead just a little bit, because you know how fast it's all going to go, the Interfaith Coalition of Polk County is planning a get-together in July, so more details on that will follow. Now, let us create our sacred space by lighting our chalice. In the light of truth, in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Sage, would you please do the honor of lighting our chalice for us? Thank you. And now once again, if you'll rise in body or spirit, for Spirit of Life, hymn number 123. I guess I go down there to separate myself as quiet at that point in time. I don't know why I do that. At any rate, Ben would now like to read to all the youth and young at heart, whether you come up here and sit down or not. This is going to be Draglin by Stephen Cosgrove.
Once, in a place and time far away, where magical things grow in great profusion, were the swamps and marshes of Weezalana. They were not your ordinary swamps and marshes, but rather a magical place with magnolia trees above and Spanish moss below. It was a place of long-legged birds and lazy rivers that lulled the land to sleep with their melodic ripples lapping at the shore. Weezalana was a bit of land here and a bit of land there, connected by graceful arched bridges of flowering willow trees. And that's the dragon who's the star of the show on that illustration. In the land of Weezalana lived creatures beyond your imagination, flying horses with great spreading wings who nested high in the magnolia trees, centaurs who gambled, not, they weren't shooting dice, okay? Sorry. About the tiny areas of the meadow, and of course, the dragons. On the edges of the swamp, dipping their toes in the warm, sluggish waters of the river. They were scaled beasts with large amber eyes who cared for nothing and occasionally blew blasts of smoke and flame into the air just to brighten up the sky. strange creatures all, but none was stranger than a short, plump little dragon named Dragoline. There he is again. Now, it was true that scales like flakes of emerald green stone, and it was true that he had beautiful, sad amber eyes. But what he didn't have, what made him strangest of all for a dragon, was that he couldn't flame a flame or even puff a cloud of smoke. Oh, how he would try. He would scrunch up his face into the most amazing contortion and grunt and groan, but the best he could do was blow a bit of half-baked smoke out of his nose. The other dragons left Dragoline all alone. They didn't want to be cruel, and watching that pudgy little monster try to light his flame was really funny. One day, as Dragoline was trying with all his might to bake a small, pathetic beetle with no result, an armadillo happened by. He was just waddling by, the way most armadillos do, when he noticed this most unferocious dragon turning blue just by trying to burn a bug. Armadillos normally have no sense of humor whatsoever, but the sight of this dragon with his eyes bulging out was more than the little armadillo could take. He leapt high into the air, then rolled onto his back, giggling and tickling himself into the mud. Poor Dragoline was so humiliated that large tears began to roll down his snout, drowning whatever chance he had of building a fire. With a bit of effort, the armadillo was able to stop his laughing, and after wiping the tears of joy from his eyes, he asked, "For why do you cry, little dragon?" Dragoline, having nothing better to do and in great need of bearing his soul, told the armadillo his whole story. He told him of the humiliation and shame of not being able to light the ceremonial fires on dragon days. He told the little creature how all his fears had been realized when no flame, not even a little spark, would leap from his mouth as it was supposed to. "Look," said the armadillo, "if you'll stop crying, I'll tell you a very simple secret of the swamps, and you shall have all the flame you desire." Instantly, Dragoline's tiny ears perked up, and he stifled his tears with a choke and a sob. "The secret," the armadillo continued, "is very, very simple. If you believe, there is nothing that you can't do." Dragoline hiccuped and said in a small voice, "Just believe? That's all I have to do?" "Yep," replied the armadillo, satisfied that he had solved the problem. "Just believe with all your might, and there's nothing you can't do." With that, he waddled on his way. "Just believe, huh?" Dragoline muttered to himself. Just then, one of the great flying horses swooped low over the trees as if it were testing a swirl of wind. Dragoline's eyes opened wide in wonder. "Then I believe that I can fly." His face contorted with the effort of believing, and he climbed high into the branches of a great magnolia tree. His eyes scrunched closed in deep concentration. Dragoline took a deep, heavy breath and soared off into the branch with a great glide. Off the branch. Unfortunately, that great glide only lasted the length of a very short sneeze, and Dragoline smashed into the mud. With much effort, he pulled himself from the mud and goo, and then sat on the bank, reflecting on what had happened. "I did everything the armadillo said. I really believed I could fly. But maybe I just didn't believe enough." So the poor, pathetic dragon sat in the shade of the tree, just thinking. "I guess I've got to believe harder," he thought, as he sat there with furrowed brow. He sat there thinking hours and hours. Finally, the armadillo happened by again and noticed the little dragon sitting in rigid concentration. The armadillo watched for a while without being noticed, and then asked, "What are you doing?" "Why," Dragoline said, "I'm a bit perturbed. I'm concentrating on believing. And as you said, if you believe, there's nothing you can't do." first time I tried, I didn't believe enough. This time I'm going to really believe. Once again, he closed his eyes tightly and went back to concentrating. After some time, Dragoline began to mutter over and over, I can, I do believe, and I know I can. Believe you can what? Asked the armadillo, who had stayed to watch, fascinated by the little dragon's antics. I believe, said Dragoline, dragging himself up on his webbed feet, that I can walk through that tree. Before Armadillo could stop him, the little dragon walked right into the tree. But the tree must have believed more than he. First, Dragoline's snout, then his body smashed into the tree, and then the best he could do was to get a large bump on the head for his efforts. The armadillo held back in his laughter as he helped the silly dragon to the edge of the river. With some water-soaked moss, he wiped the tears from Dragoline's face. Listen, little dragon, he said consolingly. You can do anything at all, if you can do something that your body is capable of doing. You could believe that you could swim, and with a lot of practice and a lot of believing, I'm sure you could swim. But if you were a rock, no matter how much you believed you could swim, you would still sink if you threw yourself into the water. Dragoline stared at his newfound friend. You mean, he sputtered, that if I believe I can make fire and flame come from my mouth, and if I'm physically able, then I will be able to make dragon's fire? The armadillo smiled and said, now you understand. All you have to do is believe with all your might, and nothing is impossible. From that day forward, Dragoline made flame and dragon's fire whenever he wished, because he believed. Sometimes on cold, blustery days, he would warm himself and his friend, the armadillo, by turning some moss and twigs into a cheery fire. So as you stand there wishing on a far and distant star, remember, by believing, you can be better than you are. And that's our story today. That was wonderful. Now I believe you sing that song to sing them out. Probably not. And then sing them out.
So, I know you all like to put your stones in. We'll let you do that, and I will wait until you're done. Well, yeah, that's how I found it. I didn't know where it came from either. That's why I gave them that story to believe. These hands will do the work. These feet will carry me.
These arms will be welcoming to what these eyes can see. And this mind will stay open to the possibility. And the love in this heart will set me free.
Beautiful. Thank you. Spirit of life and love, we seek healing for a world full of beauty, one which is being hidden under the unimaginable tragedies that we impose upon it. We know it does not have to be this way. Lead us to the ways of repair. Help us to teach one another how to do better. Let us remember that an intentional practice of imagination is what we need to guide us towards repair and new ways of being together. Let us remember that our imaginings of more loving ways of being together can only manifest when we are in community and with one another, holding ourselves and each other accountable to the covenants we make that imagine this world of beauty and harmony. Spirit of life and love, be with us as we endeavor to create change, to heal those parts of the world that are our responsibility. Would you light the healing candles for us, please, Ben? Our ritual of the sharing of joys, concerns, and sorrows embodies the belief that there is power in deciding to share our sorrows, so the burdens we carry may be diminished, and to share our joys, so they may be multiplied. Our ritual of joys and sorrows is a practice that reminds us of the interconnectedness of our lives, and that to be together during this sacred hour is a blessing. In our Joys and Sorrows book, you are able to write any significant joy or sorrow concerning, occurring in your life that you would like for the congregation to know. Today, being May 25th, 2025, that's a palindrome, 250. Okay. Good morning. Holding Owen in good, safe traveling light, Mommy Julia. Sorrow, my UU fellowship in Stowe, Vermont, has disbanded. Their final service was last Sunday. It makes me sad. Joy, however, I am grateful to be here today. Thank you, Gail. We're grateful to have you here today. Emily, I have two things weighing on my heart today. I found out a friend of mine is suffering from congestive heart failure. Her name is Christine, and she is such a sweet woman. Please keep her in your thoughts. Number two, my husband Gordon is really struggling to find a job. We thought an offer was going to come in on Friday, but the call never came. He's pretty much willing to take anything at this point. We are struggling to make ends meet on just my salary. Our hearts are with you, Emily, and I'm sure anyone who can help will. So, at this time, you are invited to come forward for our ritual of joys and sorrows. Take whatever stone or however many stones feels right to you and drop it in the bowl, connecting to others, feeling the power of being together in this community. in this friendly neighborhood between the beautiful tall pines. We are a community of people who have arrived from many different paths, yet we seek a common goal, to bring more love to a hurting but beautiful world. We do this by building our UUCL community with our time, talents, and treasures. Our shared UU value of generosity calls us to covenant with one another that we freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources so that the dream of beloved community becomes a reality. Our ushers will now pass the plate for our collection. Let's all get comfortable while Ben Vasily shares imagination in entertainment, film, literature, and human achievement, which I think we will all enjoy.
You know, it was a real day brightener as the service began today to see that we had a lot of folks here. It is a holiday weekend, a 3-day weekend, when a lot of folks travel and do family stuff, and it's really nice to see robust attendance today. That made me feel very good. Now, as far as the message this morning, let me begin by saying that the scope of my message is pretty broad. It's not focused only on imagination and entertainment, such as films and literature. Those are fascinating topics and well worth our time today. But I want to go a little deeper. This morning I will also suggest that imagination can help keep us moving forward in our efforts to imagine and create a better world. The world in which we want to live, the world we want to pass on to our children and our children's children. So let's begin. I think it will be fun and instructive and even inspirational to take a close look at imagination this morning. That is our theme for the month, and so here are some of my thoughts. And as we do that, we're going to look into entertainment and literature to see examples of what imagination can do. We'll touch on some delightful places that those works of imagination can take us. And we'll be able to review and reflect on some things from our own personal experiences. And of course, a lot of this is from my own personal obviously. And I hope it will trigger some reflection for you as well. Some film, some literature, and imaginations from so many authors, screenwriters, and filmmakers that have delighted us since the beginning of time. We're also going to briefly touch on the darker side of imagination to have a more complete picture of how that works. At the outset, I think it would be helpful to look into a reference to see how imagination is defined and a bit of how it works for us humans. And to do so, I'm going to make use of one of my go-to reference works, and that would be Wikipedia. A quick aside, if I may, I love being a heavy user of Wikipedia. I'm a monthly contributor and a small-time editor. All but one of my 157 edits have stood after review by the editors who fill the larger roles. I use it a lot and I recommend it highly. So let me cite the opening summary straight out of the Wikipedia entry for imagination. It will help lay the foundation. Imagination is the product of sensations, feelings, and thoughts informing oneself. These experiences can be recreations of past experiences, such as vivid memories with imagined changes, or completely invented and possibly fantastic scenes. Imagination helps apply knowledge to solve problems, and is fundamental to integrating experience with the learning process. A way to train imagination, this entry goes on to say, is by listening to and practicing storytelling, wherein imagination is expressed through stories and writings such as fairy tales, fantasies, and science fiction. As children develop their imagination, they often exercise it through pretend play. They use role-playing to act out what they have imagined, and then they play on by acting as if their make-believe scenarios are actual reality. Thank you, editors. I do love Wikipedia, and I think it was helpful today to kind of put that down as a foundation. Now, I want to take a moment and look into the derivation of the word imagination. And there I find Wikipedia helpful again. The English word imagination originates from the Latin term imaginatio, which is the standard Latin translation of the Greek term fantasia, with a PH, fantasia, of Greek origin. The Latin term also translates to mental image or fancy. The use of the word imagination in English can be traced back to the mid-14th century, referring to a faculty of the mind that forms and manipulates images. Fantasia. Where in pop culture, in the world of entertainment, does that word pop up? Well, no doubt many of you are familiar with the Disney movie Fantasia from 1940. Fantasia is such a beloved movie, and I know many of you have seen it, maybe more than once. Walt had a hand in creating the concept, and it's one more example of how his imagination, his creative genius, helped the studio become the behemoth that it is today. And thank you for that paycheck every Thursday. But the writers Joe Grant and Dick Huemer were the two geniuses who actually provided the main storylines and helped bring it to life. This pioneering flick is divided into 8 sections, each with background music provided by the Philadelphia Orchestra. The second one is based on the Nutcracker Suite, but it's the third section in the minds of so many fans that really carried the film into immortality and cult status. My visual aid, thank you, Crystal. Yes, a couple of the shops where I work do sell this. And now it even has an internal battery and it will light up. This one, like me, I've seen many, many miles. It used to be a bright blue. Crystal's had it for a very long time. Now, in that third part, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, that's when Yen Sid, where did that name for this fellow, the sorcerer, where did it come from? Yen Sid. Disney spelled backwards. Exactly. So in that section, it begins when Yen Sid grows weary of casting spells one night. So after he retires from the scene, a hapless Mickey Mouse attempts to take over, wearing this cap. But of course, as the mere apprentice, he has no idea of what he's doing and proceeds to, and this is a bit of an understatement, proceeds to mess everything up. Yes, chaos ensues. Enter Ben's favorite Disney villain, Chernabog, based on a devil from Slavic lore. He is the product of some animators' dark imaginings, and though his appearance is appropriately terrifying, it is a Disney movie, so all ends well. And talking about creative genius and imagination, the technical production was way, way ahead of its time. Fantasia was actually the first movie ever to feature stereo sound and also laid the technical foundation for surround sound. And although it lost money in its first run, it is now the 23rd highest grossing movie of all time in the U.S. and was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress. Talk about imagination and creative genius at work. Mickey, Yen Sid, Chernabog, a pretty memorable cast of characters there. But do you know who is my personal favorite character to ever come out of Walt Disney Productions? and I don't mean Walt himself, but from the company that sprang from his amazing imagination. Do you know who? Would you care to guess? It's none other than Figment. I think the little blurb in the newsletter probably gave that away. I guess it's appropriate now to take this off. Don't have a visual aid for him, I'm sorry, but this amazing graphic will do well. Who doesn't love Figment? He is the Disney character that personifies imagination and is the mascot for the Imagination Pavilion at Epcot. There is an exclamation point in the, as well there should be. The merchandising shop in the pavilion is called ImageWorks, and I've enjoyed working one and only one shift there. It belongs in the same merch unit as Epcot Towers and Seabase 1 at Living Seas. I picked up many extra shifts in those locations. Well, one day they moved me to ImageWorks just that one time to cover a call-in. I loved it. I felt right at home with Figment and my fellow cast members who staffed that location most of the time. Another aside, if I may, one of the things I like most about my position at Disney is how in the everybody in the world calls it retail. We call it merchandising. But we who do that are free to pick up extra shifts in any shop, anywhere. I've worked in all 4 parks, in 14 shops in all, and I can't tell you how much fun that is. And we just do it amongst ourselves. Management doesn't get involved in that. We do it on websites. And unless it puts that cast member into overtime, it doesn't need any kind of an approval. And lately I've worked more shifts where I don't belong than where I actually do belong, which happens to be Hollywood Studios. Now, back to Figment. He sprang from the fertile and productive imagination of writer Tony Baxter, who dreamed up the name Figment one day after watching an episode of Magnum P.I. In that scene, Magnum's pet goat ate some of his friend's prized tropical flowers. And he, being rather peeved when he found this out, said to Magnum, "Don't tell me that that goat is a figment of my imagination. Figments don't eat tropical flowers." And thus was Disney's beloved purple dragon named. Now you know the rest of the story. I came to love this amazing and playful dragon with the purple hue when the Imagination Pavilion at Epcot featured Captain EO, a fabulous 3D film with amazing effects that ran at Epcot from 1986 to the late 90s. Some of you have probably seen that. The star of the movie, of course, was Michael Jackson. To me, it was one of the very best things about Epcot, and that is my favorite Disney park. What that has to do with Figment is that he was the star of the pre-show, and I came to love the pre-show as much as the actual feature film. It starred MJ, and it was amazing. I think probably some of you have seen that. Now, the movie came out when my 3 sons were little. I was working at Disney at that time as a busboy on the Empress Lily back in the Pleasure Island days. And then later moved to Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater at Hollywood Studios. Fabulous place if you are hungry on a visit to Hollywood. Many of you also know that at that time, a lot of guests called the park MGM Studios. Of course, now it's just called Disney Hollywood Studios. Now, guys, where I'm going with all that is that my love for Figment as a character was greatly magnified by the fact that every time we saw the film and that pre-show, I had 3 boys with me. My sons were age 10, 9, and 5, and we all agreed that Figment was fabulous, and I still love him today. His antics were unlimited and so very memorable. That one shift I covered at the shop ImageWorks last month was a thrill. It was then that I discovered that there is a children's golden book on Figment. All of you have probably seen golden, but certainly those of you who are boomers like me remember golden books. I think we had at least 10 or 15 of them at my place. I wanted to get a copy for today's service, but I didn't have a chance to get back to Epcot in time. Now, I'm not just up here trying to promote my employer. Well, I don't know. But obviously I am someone who likes his job. I feel very grateful to have it. But I am not going to leave Universal Studios out of the picture. For me, probably the coolest movie they've come out with are we're on to Shrek now. The coolest movie were the Shrek movies. If you saw them, you probably loved them too. An ugly, intensely green monster, his beloved green girlfriend, and a talking donkey? Whose genius mind dreamed up that stuff? Well, there's a lot of credit to spread around, as is always the case. The movie was loosely based on the 1990 children's picture book, Shrek, by writer William Steig. It was adapted for the big screen by writers Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio, and Joe Stillman, and captured the imaginations of millions in the U.S. and all around the world. And it made Universal Studios a whole lot of money. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and John Lithgow were fabulous. It was one of those movies that folks watch again and again, and a great example of the top shelf work done routinely by Universal Pictures. In fact, they are, without question, the second best film studio on the planet. Hey, make that the second best in the whole universe. I couldn't help myself there, sorry. But Jaws and the Jurassic Park franchise and Wicked, some great and highly imaginative work. If you love to feast on the fruits of some fabulous, fertile imaginations, Central Florida is the place to be. Now, I've really enjoyed regaling you with stories and lots of verbiage about some great imaginings from folks who really excel at that. And it's a great thing that we are in a place where it's literally all around us. But it's also true that although the vivid and prodigious imaginations can amaze, delight, and edify us, a dark, devious, and overwrought imagination can shock and terrify us as well. I love the lighter, happier stuff and focus very intentionally on that slice of human experience these days. But as you all know, on the darker side, well, there's plenty of material there too. As a younger man, I had a dark and somewhat morbid fascination with that side of literature and film. By the way, I haven't pursued any kind of literary studies in any serious way since I completed my bachelor's, but I did, in fact, major in English literature. And I was really immersed in such things, deeply immersed for the first quarter century of my life. I read a lot of fantasy, science fiction, and horror literature all through high school. Loved Harlan Ellison and H.P. Lovecraft and some of those folks. Read a lot of that right along with Shakespeare and the King James Version of the Bible. Go figure. Now, Frankenstein sprang from the dark, fecund imagination of Mary Shelley and is considered by many literary critics to be the first true science fiction novel. Reading that in college thrilled and tantalized me and worked its way into my own young, dark, and often overwrought imagination, in a good way. It's a classic and has been adapted for stage and screen too many times to count, and is still sitting on my read again list one of these days. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my favorite American author, Edgar Allan Poe. What a man of imagination. The Fall of the House of Usher, The Cask of Amontillado, The Telltale Heart. Amazing works of American literature from a true master. I loved them all and had my nose in a Poe story or poem for hours upon hours, especially in high school, and then my first 2 years of college. But it's Poe's masterwork of The Raven, which burrowed its way the deepest into my dark, grieving imagination just after my junior year of high school. My high school sweetheart broke it off that summer, and I was devastated. Among the things I fed my troubled mind on while I was grieving the loss of that relation was Poe's The Raven. It's the story of a man who lost his one true love, as Poe did, in real life, and how a bird was sent from the underworld to tell him that he would never be reunited with his beloved Lenore, not in this world or the next, and that his grief emotional even just thinking about this. I'm sorry. And yes, my personal grief was so strong at that time that I immersed myself in that dark, horror-filled work and memorized the whole thing. Hey, whatever helps you cope, right? All 18 stanzas. Time will not permit me to go through a resuscitation of that whole dark and ghastly gem, but let me set the stage. It is in the 16th stanza that this mysterious and taciturn avian emissary from hell finally rips the last faint shred of hope from our horrified, grief-stricken protagonist with the same one-word reply that proceeded from his accursed black beak a dozen times before. The single word, nevermore. And now the complete and utter truth has penetrated, and the grief-racked widower cannot accept his terrible fate. But in the final stanza, we see that he will never escape his dark destiny. So here's one of the final parts of his interaction with that bird, beginning with stanza 16. Prophet said, I think of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of the lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart and thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on that pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. In his eyes hold the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. In the lamplight o'er him streaming, throws his shadow on the floor. My soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. I really get into character with these things. Thank you. So you see that grand, deep, and fertile imagination can be focused in more than one direction. It can lead us to higher heights and deeper depths. It can inspire and uplift us, and it can stun and shatter us and rob us of our last shred of hope. That is the power of imagination. Did you know that focusing one's mind and imagination on excellence, success, and achievement can be effective in helping us reach for new heights of human performance? Did you know that in the world of sports, teams and individual athletes hire sports psychologists and performance experts to help them achieve higher and perform at elite levels? Probably many of you did not know that. Well, this process that makes that work is no different than what kids go through when they role play, when they make believe and they reframe the world and their experiences as they get closer to adulthood and start to create or bring into being what they have seen from the grown-ups around them, what they've been taught, and what they've imagined for themselves in those quiet moments of reflection when we weave together our lessons, our beliefs, and our imaginings to create our lives. As some of you know, I think that along with Tom Meade, I'm a big-time baseball fan. There are plenty of players in the major leagues who spend considerable chunks of their time visualizing, seeing the ball leave the pitcher's hand, sailing towards them in slow motion, picking up the trajectory and even the spin of the ball, and then making contact, barreling the ball up, as the expression in baseball goes, and watching it sail over the wall in center field. And it works. And they pay sports psychologists big money to coach them in that technique of visualization. Now, I see no useful separation or delineation between the words or concepts of visualization and imagination. We visualize things, we imagine them. To me, pretty much the same. Can we apply these concepts of visualization to our everyday lives? Imagination? Well, I believe we can. We surely can. Are you troubled by the state of our nation? The state our nation and our world is in? Well, I am. I think I've got lots of company when I say that the current state of things is bad. It's beyond bad. It's horrible. To me, it seems to be about as bad as it can get. But can we imagine? Can we begin to create, to bring into being a better world? We grieve for our communities, our nation, and our planet now. And I would never, ever tap dance around this awful truth that we are in deep trouble in many ways, in most spheres of life. Yet it's also true that our work must go on. We must persevere in our task to create a better world, a world where the strong don't oppress and dominate the weak, where the uber-wealthy and the oligarchs of the world don't use their riches to trample on the aspirations and rights of the vast majority of Earth's people, trapping them in illness, poverty, and wretchedness while hoarding a vast share of the Earth's resources, our resources and wealth. Well, I say this morning, our work must go on to visualize, to imagine, and to bring into being more aware, more full and whole individuals and families, happier and healthier and more inclusive communities, and most importantly, a more whole and just and equal human family. That is our task, our mission as Unitarian Universalists. Let us persevere in this enterprise to imagine, to visualize, and to work untiringly for, and to bring into being the human experience and the world for which we yearn. Now we're going to sing We'll Build a Land, hymn 122, 121,